The most significant burial benefit that we provide at Beaufort National Cemetery is the maintenance and upkeep of the cemetery to national shrine standards. It is a gorgeous cemetery and we get compliments all the time. However, my job is to see the flaws, but I have to remind myself to see it as just about everybody else does and appreciate the beauty and the fittingness of this as a tribute to those who are buried there. In one of our sections that's dedicated to the burial of United States colored troops, those were African Americans that served in the Union Army during the Civil War. William Bronson was the first applicant or enlistee in the 1st South Carolina Volunteers, and that means that he is quite possibly the first African American to officially serve in the United States Army. Whenever we talk about Memorial Day in South Carolina, we remember that one of the earliest, if not the first, Decoration Day celebration took place up in Charleston, associated with the graves that were on a prisoner of war camp.
257 of them died. And instead of them being buried in individual graves, they put them all in one mass grave. When we were still enslaved, then we were considered just property. But when we decided that we wanted to fight for our own freedom, all of a sudden we became family members that had turned against their family. Treasonous traitors. The mindset of the white Confederate person was that they didn't deserve that kind of honor of being placed in an individual grave. The U.S. colored troops came through. By this time, Charleston is evacuated from the white Confederacy, so the only people are here are us. They came through and they realized that their comrades had been buried in this mass grave. So they dug up those 257 bodies. It took them 2 weeks to reinter them. At the end of those 2 weeks, they planned a big commemoration. So you had the U.S. colored troops, you had the white Union troops, you had the Women's Relief Corps. They had speeches and picnics and horse races and games, and that celebration was the first Memorial Day as we celebrate it today. What's the true definition of patriotism? And for me, a black soldier that would leave here because freedom was just that important.
I can imagine the kids, the enslaved children, seeing those troops come down. You know, it must have been like a dream, seeing them come down in their uniforms, waving the American flag. There was some hope that the right side would win and you would be free.
Well, you know, President Lincoln had just written the Emancipation Proclamation, and he wanted to test it out. He said, now, if we give them their freedom, and we're not gonna free all of them, just the enslaved Africans, or you call them Negroes, in the rebellious states. So if you was a southern state, but you still wanted to be part of the Union, then you could keep your slaves. But the ones that were rebellious, we're gonna free you. And it was called the Port Royal Experiment. And so he said, well, let's test it out in Beaufort, because we had just gone through, like I said, November 7th, 1861, we were already free here. But we were only considered contraband at the time. And so we work in the fields that we were once working the fields for no money. Now we're earning the money because you got valuable cotton, you got rice, you got indigo, you got all this stuff in the fields, and who knows how to do it but us. So now the union is paying us to harvest this stuff. And so now we're getting this money. These former plantations are being cut up and divided up, and enslaved Africans got the monies now to purchase. So a lot of we became property owners right in the middle of the Civil War.
In Beaufort?
In Beaufort. We became educated in the middle of the Civil War. We were in the heart of the Confederacy. Right here in Beaufort, we're free. You cross the bridge going toward Charleston, Combahee River Bridge, that's College County. That's a Confederate stronghold. You go across Savannah Bridge, you're in Savannah, Georgia, that's another Confederate stronghold. So we're in the middle of all of that, and we're free.